Greetings everyone and welcome to the most inconsistent gaming news talk show on the internet, on YouTube as a whole. I'm SirCazz and this is one player only, and it's a show that I make sometimes whenever the hell I feel like it, where we talk about the video game news of the week. Now, typically, I don't know, I feel like a lot of weeks if I were to make an episode of this show, I'd be really stretching to come up with stories that remotely interest me. And I'm just not interested in doing an episode of this every week going over all the news because, let's be real, there's crap tons of news that no one gives a shit about, that I don't give a shit about, but this week is an exception. So let's chat about a lot of the incredibly substantial news that we got this week, and I've got a fair bit to talk about, so, you know, let's get right into it. So we had two big events in the industry this week. We had State of Play earlier in the week, and then of course followed by the Game Awards. And jumping right into the Game Awards stuff, we have the biggest, I think, stuff announcement thing to talk about today, and that is the reveal of the Xbox Series X, Project Scarlet. I was just talking about it last week on the channel, and not in a million years did I expect that we'd have this console revealed in December. I was very much anticipating that 2020 was going to be, you know, obviously when both consoles are announced fully and when we get all the details, and I was excited for that. I'm looking forward to everything that we're getting with 2020, but hell, Microsoft's just jumping out of the gate early. Let's reveal our console now, get ahead of Sony. And I think this is a fantastic move on the part of Microsoft. Nothing that they've talked about has been underwhelming. Nothing they've done has been underwhelming so far. And I can't say the same about Sony with PS5 because, while this year Sony decided to implement the very bizarre marketing strategy of just releasing Wired articles about the PS5 where they kind of vaguely discuss the specs without actually being able to, you know, actually show the console or anything like that. Whereas Microsoft, you know, obviously they built up the hype at E3 with the Project Scarlet announcement, with the Halo Infinite stuff, and then now jumping right into the Game Awards, here's the console. No one saw it coming. I think this is fantastic. This, for me, has got me, as someone who's a PlayStation person who doesn't own an Xbox One at all, I'm way more interested in what Xbox is doing right now. I'm way more interested in the Series X than I am PS5 right now, because I think Microsoft has really done a good job at generating interest here. It was an announcement no one saw coming right at the top of the show, which was an awesome surprise for everyone watching live, and Sony just hasn't been able to at all, at least yet, measure up to that with just dropping these news articles. Like, meh, I don't know, it's kind of bland, it's kind of boring. Microsoft is doing something way more exciting, and let me say, the reveal of what the console actually looks like, I think it looks awesome personally. I know there's obviously all the jokes around that it looks like a fridge and whatever. I don't care, I think it looks like an awesome console. Sure, it looks like a PC, it looks like basically a kind of, I guess, condensed PC tower, but I think it looks really sleek and stylish, the minimalist kind of approach, with it literally being an Xbox. It's just a friggin' grey box, and I think it's awesome. The Xbox controller looks like it's gone under basically very little revision. They've just added a share button on it, it looks like. I think the name Series X by itself, with just knowing about this one console so far, is a bit strange, but it's obvious given the name that there's going to be multiple of these consoles. We're most likely going to end up with an Xbox Series S or a Series other letter, I don't know what the hell it'll be. But Lockhart, which we talked about last week, which was of course the discless download and streaming only console, that's going to end up being an Xbox Series something, Xbox Series S, whatever. And with that in mind, I think the series title is pretty cool, honestly. It's the closest we're going to get to this console just being called the Xbox. And I just love the simplicity to it all, honestly. This is the polar opposite of the 2013 Xbox One stuff, which obviously everyone mocks because it was terrible. They're just nailing this message. It's a simple looking console with a simple name, with a simple catchphrase being power your dreams, with a simple message that this is the place to play the most powerful games. So I thought all that stuff was really cool, and I think it's clear that Microsoft, by getting ahead of Sony, has done something really, really cool and really, really clever. We'll have to wait and see, probably until earlier in the year, next year, or maybe even till E3 to see what Sony has to say to counter this. I will say at this point, if they choose to release another Wired article, that would be very disappointing. I kind of also just thought how funny it would be for all the Sony execs And I know Mark Cerny is, of course, the system architect on PS5. He's literally sitting in the crowd at the Game Awards, just like watching his competitor unveil their console right in front of him. I thought that was pretty funny. But of course, accompanying this was the announcement of a Hellblade sequel, which I must say, never saw this coming. When Phil Spencer got up on stage at the Game Awards and said, here's a look at an early in development project for Series X, and the Ninja Theory logo came up, I thought that was quite cool and surprising in and of itself because of Bleeding Edge still coming out next year, I believe, right? So I didn't expect a Ninja Theory game to be ready to be shown at all. Even though I know there obviously are two teams in Ninja Theory, still I didn't expect the Hellblade team to have something to show, and for it to be a Hellblade sequel as well was very surprising. If you haven't played Hellblade, the original, I highly recommend checking it out, and I think the reason I'm surprised that we're getting a sequel to it is because I felt the game had a really solid ending, and I thought that the entire journey that Senua went on within that game was quite self-contained and didn't really warrant a sequel at all, but the fact we're getting one is certainly surprising. Like I said, it's interesting. I'm currently not planning on getting a Series X or an Xbox console, but this might pull me over the line to do so at some point in the future. Alright, let's get a move on here because there's lots to discuss. Ghost of Tsushima, the Sucker Punch developed PlayStation first-party exclusive that we've known about for quite some time, that I've been anticipating ever since we got the full demo at E3 2018. I thought that demo was terrific, and I've been very excited to see more about it, and we certainly got more about it. We got a comprehensive trailer that I thought did a fantastic job at showcasing the visuals. The game looks absolutely stunning, obviously, and I thought it did a really great job of showcasing this character that we're playing as, because really, in my mind at least, we hadn't really got any kind of context regarding the games. Obviously, we knew all about the setting, but we didn't really know about the main character or the story or anything like that. But us getting a very small glimpse into that with the Ghost, this guy we're playing as, this feared samurai, I don't know, I thought it was fantastic. And other than getting a new look, which we haven't done in over a year and a half, the big announcement coinciding with the trailer was that it's confirmed to be coming in summer 2020, which will likely put it in the August-September area, probably around where Spider-Man released, or maybe a little bit before that. Sony hasn't released one of their AAA exclusives in the June or July months for quite some time. I believe the last time that was done was for The Last of Us in 2013, which I could be wrong about that, but off the top of my head, that was the last time they've done that. So I think they've established a trend that they don't like releasing their big exclusives in those months, so I think it being early September, late August makes a lot of sense. Alright, continuing with PlayStation and next-gen news, which is super exciting that we're going to be getting more and more of this in the months to come, we have the very first look and reveal of a PS5 launch game being GodFall. This was talked about at the Game Awards, and it's being developed by Counterplay and published by Gearbox. And the trailer obviously looks very visually impressive and everything, and the gameplay, we saw, I believe, a snippet of gameplay in there somewhere. It looks kind of interesting, I don't know. For me personally, I'm not overly interested because it seems like it's going to be a multiplayer-centric experience, which, as you know, I'm not a big fan of. So will I be playing Godfall? I mean, probably not. I'm hoping that there's going to be some really awesome first-party Sony exclusive, like a Horizon 2 maybe, or something along those lines for me to be playing at the PS5's launch. But hey, I don't know, obviously it's early. If this turns out to look good, I might check it out, but it doesn't grab my attention immediately. And for it to be the first PlayStation 5 launch title revealed, it kind of underwhelmed me a little bit in that sense. But I mean, obviously it looked pretty, and I'm sure people are going to like it and play it, so yeah, whatever. That's all I've got to say on that one. Alright, moving away from the Game Awards, it was announced earlier this week that Sony San Diego, which is the studio that, at the moment anyway, only develops MLB The Show as a franchise, and that series, which is quite a big deal in America, I believe, since it is the only MLB Major Baseball game, it's exclusive to PlayStation, with it being a first-party game, which has always been an interesting set of circumstances, but that's changing because MLB's come to a new agreement with Sony, and the Show franchise will now be releasing, starting in 2021, on Nintendo Switch and Xbox hardware as well. Why is this big news, may I ask? Why should you care or take any notice if you're not a baseball fan? Well, it's the fact that Sony will, for, I believe, the first time, be responsible for developing and publishing a third-party game. A game that's going to be released on Switch and Xbox platforms is going to be developed and published by Sony, which is quite interesting. Now, with that information just kind of by itself, it kind of draws parallels to what Microsoft has been doing with them releasing a lot of games on Switch, and obviously showing no fear with releasing their first-party exclusives on whatever the hell they want, with everything coming to PC. But I honestly am of the mind that this isn't a big deal. The only way it would be a big deal is that if it were the beginning of Sony setting a precedent of them being willing to develop games outside of their own hardware, for them to be willing to publish other games, other exclusives potentially on other hardware. That would be interesting. Obviously, the prospect of anything like The Last of Us or Ghost of Tsushima or anything like that releasing on Xbox hardware would be incredibly interesting and huge news. But the reason I don't think this is a very big deal is because it's obviously a very unique set of circumstances and a unique scenario where MLB, the license holder, has this agreement with Sony, and MLB simply wants them to release the game on more platforms for them to be able to sell more copies and make more money. So in that sense, Sony's just being pressured by the license holder to do something like that. Otherwise, they were going to lose the access to the license of MLB, and they wouldn't be able to make those games anymore, which would obviously damage their bottom line. Whereas Sony developing MLB The Show for other platforms, all it does now is increase their profit. Obviously, the argument could be made that this series was initially at some point, or maybe perhaps still is, a console seller. I don't really believe that. So in that way, because of the unique scenario of this whole exclusive debacle being related to MLB, specifically coming to an agreement, a different agreement with Sony regarding the license, leading to this situation, I think it's clear that this won't set a precedent in the future, and that it doesn't really mean much for the rest of Sony first party. But by itself, it is interesting news, hearing that Sony, yes, will be publishing games for other platforms. By itself, that is kind of interesting news, so I thought it was definitely worth bringing up. Alright, 2 rapid fire stories to end with. We have the Resident Evil 3 remake confirmed to be releasing in April of 2020. This leaked weeks ago on the PlayStation Store, and it was officially announced as part of the State of Play presentation. No one on the internet was surprised by this one, but obviously with the success of Resident Evil 2 earlier this year and the popularity of Resident Evil as a franchise, this is going to be a big release for Capcom, so, you know, good on them, I guess. Other than the fact that it's confirmed to exist, the only other big news to come out of it was the fact that that Project Resistance multiplayer game that they'd announced months ago is tied into this remake, since Resident Evil Resistance is the multiplayer mode for Resident Evil 3. So that's it. I don't really care personally too much about that. I'm not a big fan of Resident Evil, but there you go. Finally, 2K's announced that they're working on a new BioShock game with a new studio being Cloud Chamber. BioShock's coming back. Apparently, according to Jason Schreier over at Kotaku, it's been in development for quite some time and it's been repurposed and rebooted a few times internally. But nonetheless, it was kind of random for 2K to just come out and say this. Oh yeah, by the way, we're working on BioShock again. Get excited, I guess. BioShock's a huge franchise, so this is going to be a big deal to a lot of people when it eventually is actually revealed properly and it's actually coming out. But at this point, with it being probably, you know, somewhat early in development, we're probably not going to see a trailer or any deeper look into it for quite a few years still. So regardless, there you go, BioShock's coming back confirmed. I've only played BioShock very briefly personally. It's something I want to get back into for sure because I know how beloved the franchise is and I'm sure it's fantastic, but my expertise on that one is definitely limited. Alright, that was a lot of stories this week, but there was a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Make sure you let me know about your thoughts on anything I discussed today, any of the news stories, in the comment section down below, and leave a like on the video if you did like it, that'd be great. As always, feel free to leave any feedback as well. I definitely am trying to find my groove with these kind of uploads. I don't really know what I'm doing. I just turn on the mic and think, hell, I'll talk about some news. Anyway, this has been One Player Only, and this has been SirCazz. Farewell.